Today we're going to start section 4 of chapter 4, and we are going to be doing factoring of quadratics. And today we're going to be doing when the leading coefficient is 1. So that means out in front of x squared is always going to be a 1. And then next week that will change and those numbers out front will be different. So factoring is a big topic in Algebra 2. Super important. It's on our SLO test at the end of the year. So it's really important that you guys understand this and ask questions and stuff of me and Mrs. Crambo when you are confused. So I'm going to underline the stuff that I want you to write down. There is a step sheet that is super important, so I'm going to have you guys write all of those steps down, and then we're just going to jump into some examples. So when you're factoring, you are basically rewriting an expression as a product of two factors. So you're going to have two sets of parentheses and stuff is going to be inside of them. And that's what a factored quadratic looks like. And you're basically going to be foiling backwards. This slide is important. It's just kind of some background knowledge. These should be things that you guys already know, but we're going to highlight them and make sure that you guys understand them. So when you multiply two numbers together, how do you get a positive outcome? So if you're multiplying two different numbers, how does what they equal become positive? Well, if you multiply positive by positive, you're going to get a positive outcome. Also, if you multiply negative and negative, you're going to get a positive outcome. So I know that's basic stuff that you learned in pre-algebra and algebra 1, but it's important that you write this down because this is going to come into play here in a little bit when we're doing these problems. All right, and then when you multiply two numbers together, how do you get a negative outcome? Well, positive and a negative, or negative and a positive, which those seem like the same thing, but it does matter which number has the positive sign and which has the negative. So when we're doing our factoring, that's going to matter. So you need to know that it can be positive negative or negative positive. Okay, and then this is the standard form that we're going to be working with. We're going to have a number x squared. In this case, for this week, it's all going to be 1, plus or minus a number times x, and then plus or minus a constant number. So that last number will never have a variable with it. All right, and then here's our step sheet. These are super important. I really want to make sure that you guys write these down. So I'm not going to read through them though, because we're going to be applying these steps to examples here in a second. But I will pause here for a second so that you guys can write these down. And then you might have to pause your video and then I'll scroll down here in a minute. So this first question is very important. That's going to be at the top of your notes, the top of your homework, until you really get the hang of it, and then you can just write the blanks where you don't have to write all the words. So write the first question down and then write these steps. Go ahead and pause the video. And I'm going to scroll down. And these are almost all the rest of the steps. So steps 3 through 8. Go ahead and pause the video. And then the rest of step 8 and step 9. All right, now we're going to jump into some examples. So the first example is x squared plus 9x plus 20. Now, some of you guys are going to catch on really quickly, and you're not going to have to go through each step every single time because you're going to get it. But some of us it's going to take a little bit longer to process, which is fine. But I've come up with a step sheet here that works every single time. So no matter what the numbers are, this is going to work every time. So if you do get stuck, you're struggling a little bit, go back to the steps and make sure that you are doing them one by one and that you're following them correctly. Okay, so step 1 says look for a negative sign out in front of a, which is the first term, which is whatever's in front of x squared, and factor it out if there is one. Change the signs of each term. Well, this one, all these numbers are positive, so I don't need to worry about step 1. I can move on to step 2. Step 2 says multiply A and C. So that is this number and this number. And fill in the first blank. So the number out in front of x squared is 1. So 1 times 20 is 20. So that goes here. That step's going to seem a little bit silly this week because it's always going to be a 1 out front, but you have to get in the habit of doing it now because next week it's not going to be a 1 anymore and you're going to want to skip that step, and that step is super important. So get in the habit of doing it now. Okay, step 3 says write your b value in the second blank. So this is b, that's going to go here. Okay, so right now the question reads, what are the factors of 20 that add to 9? So factors means two numbers that multiply to each other. So step 4 says write out the factors of the number in blank 1. So that means I've got 20. Now I need to think about the numbers that multiply to 20. Well, 1 and 20, 2 and 10, and 4 and 5. Okay, I know I need positive 20 because there's a positive sign here. And I also need positive 9. So I know that one of these combinations has got to work because I don't want to involve negative signs because both of those are positive. So do any of those numbers, step 5 says figure out which pair of factors add to get the number in blank 2. So do any of these combinations here add and give me 9? Yes, 4 and 5. So I'm going to circle that. And then it says write out your answers to binomials. So that means I'm going to have my parentheses here. Always going to fill in with a variable. So x and x. And then I've got positive 4 and positive 5. That was my pair that I got. And then it says divide the numbers inside by a. So I'm going to divide by 1. And then it says move that denominator out in front of x. So this is going to be 1x plus 4, 1x plus 5. And that completes our answer. Okay, dividing by 1 seems silly, but again, we get in the habit of doing this now, then next week is going to be even easier because we're going to have made good habits. Okay, and also, I realize that some of you can come up with 4 and 5 pretty quickly and automatically know that that's the pair we need to use because they added 9, but I'm going to go through the steps each time. But if it doesn't take you that long and you don't have to write out the factors, then that's fine as well. Okay, next one. I've got x squared plus 14x minus 72. All right, so step 1, look for a negative out in front of a. We do not have that, so I move on to step 2. Multiply a and c. 1 times negative 72 is negative 72. Write b value in the second blank, so that would be 14. Okay, so now I'm looking for factors of negative 72 that add to 14. Okay, and there's a website that can help you with this to find factors of negative 72 because that's a way less common number than 20 was in the previous problem. And I'll show you that whenever you come to class this week. And I'll also attach it on Google Classroom. But when I'm finding the factors of negative 72, I've got 1 and negative 72, 2 and negative 36, 3 and negative 24, 4 and negative 18, 6 and negative 12, and then it just goes on and on. Okay, but I can see here that there's a combination that when I add them together, it's going to give me 14. But I'm going to have to flip-flop the signs. This pair here, if I add those two together in my calculator, I'm going to get negative 14. But I want positive 14. So what I need to do is make the 4 negative and the 18 positive. Okay, now I'm on the step where I can write my binomials. So I'm going to make my parentheses, fill in my x, and I'm going to have minus 4 plus 18. Now I need to divide by a, which is going to be 1 this week, but next week it's going to change. And then take that bottom number and kick it out front. It's 1x minus 4, 1x plus 18. Okay, next example. There are two factors of blank that add to blank. So I need to go through my steps here, look for a negative sign out in front of A. I have it. So I need to change that. So I'm going to take it out, and I'm going to change the signs of all the terms. So x squared becomes positive, 13x becomes negative, and 12 becomes positive. So now that's my new A, B, and C values that I'm going to be using. Okay. So next step, multiply A and C. So 1 times 12 is 12. Fill in the second blank with my B value, which is negative 13. So I'm looking for two factors of 12 that add to negative 13. So I've got 12 here. When this number is negative, that means both of my numbers here need to be negative. So when I'm finding factors here, I need to pay attention to that. So I've got 1 and 12, negative 2, negative 6, negative 3, negative 4. Okay, when I add any of those numbers together, is it going to give me negative 13? Yes, this pair here. Now I need to fill in my binomials. X minus 1, x minus 12. Divide by A. Kick that out front. So 1x minus 1, 1x minus 12. And then this negative sign here that I took out, it needs to land out in front of my answer. All right, last example. I've got negative x squared plus 7x plus 44. So step 1 says to look for a negative sign out front. I have it, so I need to take it out. So the first term becomes positive, and the next two are going to become negative. Those are my new A, B, and C values. Next step, multiply A times C. 1 times negative 44 is negative 44. And write my B value in the next blank, which is negative 7. Okay, now I need to write out my factors of negative 44 that add to negative 7. So I've got 1 and negative 44, 2 and negative 22, 4 and negative 11, and that's it. So my only other options would be to flip-flop and put the negative signs with the first numbers. But let's see if any of those add to negative 7. 1 and negative 44 definitely don't. So that's out. 2 and negative 22 getting closer, but still not. 4 plus negative 11 is negative 7. So that's my pair. Now I need to fill in my binomials. So x and x plus 4 minus 11. Now I need to divide by my A value, which is 1. Kick that out front. So 1x plus 4, 1x minus 11. And then remember this negative sign has got to land out in front of my answer. All right, your homework is going to be on Google Classroom. Make sure you are asking for help if you're confused. This is a huge topic in Algebra 2. We're going to be adding on to it next week.